spring split, or have Splyce leveled up against G2 yesterday? They didn't really get a chance to show any development they may have had in the off-season. Here, jumping into picks and bans, they banned out the Ryze, the Draven, and the Sona. Aatrox and Irelia taken away by Vitality.
So what are we looking at? Some of the power picks that could still be up and available. Sylas is still available. A lot of junglers up too. Things like the Jarvan, the Rek'Sai, the Olaf are all also big power picks that could make their way through the draft. It depends on what are Vitality afraid of. What do they want to take off the board? I would imagine the Sylas would be the big priority pick, but they could consider something like a Rakan ban if they're worried about Noscaran picking that one up.
Well, there we are. There is the Rakan ban. Good predictions on that already, Vedius. It means the Sylas is available for Humanoid if he wants to take it. We have seen Xerxes play it in the jungle last split as well. Don't expect Xerxes to be piloting Sylas.
Yeah, for now, that flex pick is always an option, but we're expecting it to be between both top and mid. Now Vitality have the opportunity to answer back. We did see them prioritize a strong early game jungler yesterday. Wouldn't be too surprising if they wanted to value something like the Jarvan, something that they actually played a lot of last split, and they could pair it up with something like the Jace, have that big powerful combo that they found a lot of success with last split, and we know something that Cabochard is more than happy to play.
Yeah, last time we saw these teams win, we haven't actually talked about the fact that Yuumi got through first pick here as well. Through the picks, through the first ban phase, picked up first by Vitality. Have to expect that being Jack Troll in the bottom lane, taking the cat down towards them.
There was a lot of discussion, so perhaps Vitality weren't expecting this to be available. They saw it as an option, and they were debating whether they wanted to prioritize it. We've heard a lot of people discuss around how many different AD carries and what AD carries she can match up well with, depending on if you want to play aggressively or defensively. And I think that it can work very well, especially into Vitality's playstyle if they're very top-side focused, but it feels like Splyce is very confident in their bot lane answer.
Splyce knew what they were doing straight here. Nautilus is a very common pick into the Yuumi. It means you can hard engage on the AD carry who's usually standing by themselves. And alongside the Sivir, you have a bit of push in that lane and some scaling advantage as well. Now, Vitality did go for the early jungler in the form of the Olaf. We'll see what they round their first pick phase out with.
So Lucian, Ezreal would be kind of the power picks that I would think that pair up nicely with Yuumi. I think that, again, if we expect Vitality to play around both mid and top, I think this is a very safe lane towards the bot side of the map. A lot of poke, a lot of pressure can be generated with this duo, and it's also very easy for that Ezreal to stack up those Cryptomancy stacks and kind of just work his way through the laning phase. But you have to be careful of the all-in power that Nautilus does provide, the speed up with the Sivir. Splyce could look to attack this bottom lane and maybe set up some dives.
Definitely could. What you're looking for in the jungle then is things like the Sejuani for those dives. Elise is there as well, Jarvan, all of these strong yanking junglers and team up well with the Sylas. Vitality will remove the Rumble from the table, and now Splyce looking for their first ban of the second phase.
Vitality looking to limit some of the safe blind picks that Splyce could go for up towards the top side of the map. They want to try and guarantee this counter pick for Cabochard so they can save it for last, and they're saying, well, you know what? We've already seen you go for the Rumble when you're looking for a blind pick. With Aatrox already taken off the board, I think that they want to look to leave Jace open as a potential answer, but let's also not forget that this Olaf could be flexed towards the top side of the map, given that Cabochard has shown that before.
That's definitely true. Vitality taking a bit of time over this last ban for them. They'll get rid of the Gnar. Chachi, of course, very well known for his Gnar, and it is a safe top lane pick. Very easy to play defensively in that lane. Splyce, however, you said they wanted to look at some of those safe blind picks. Well, Cassiopeia doesn't really fall into that wheelhouse too much. But
well, I think for Splyce, they're looking to ban away some of the difficult matchups that Humanoid could face there.
Makes sense.
We saw Cassio as an answer to the Sylas yesterday. They're now going to take the Azir away as well. This heavily indicates that it will be Humanoid playing the Sylas in the middle lane. And now we'll see what other picks Vitality have prepared to try and deal with this Sylas in the middle lane. And unsurprisingly, it's going to be the LeBlanc for Jizuke, one of his big picks that he's found so much success with here on the European stage.
Yeah, can do so much work on that mage in the mid lane. Splyce have a lot of options left for them. They're looking at jungler and top. Sejuani getting all the way through the draft is not something we've seen too commonly in the first weekend of the LEC.
Well, right now what I'm seeing from Vitality is a very strong 2v2 jungle. LeBlanc and Ol are very, very potent, especially in the early levels, and Splyce want to try and match that by going with the Elise. I still think that in the early game, it's going to be a little challenging for them, but you already talked about the dives, and we talked about that potential bot lane play. By going for the Elise, they're heavily setting up for that, and they're saying, we're going to kind of abandon our top side of the map. We're going to take the Poppy, and Vizicachi, the original Poppy player when he first qualified for the EU LCS at the time, is just going to sit in the top lane and look to survive.
The issue is, though, last split in spring when we saw Vitality 2-0 Splyce in the regular season, they played top lane tanks and tried to play through their bottom lane. Vitality had Cabo Shard on a carry like the Jace and were able just to capitalize on that top side of the map. So looking at this, it's very reminiscent for me of those spring games.
Yeah, it looks like that we're just going to be trading sides. Splyce focusing towards the bot side of the map, Vitality focusing up towards the top side, and don't be surprised to see Jizuke at around level 6 to 8 look for a roam up towards the top lane to try and shut down Vizicachi and snowball Cabo Shard. So it's going to be interesting. Will we see Mowgli kind of what's the word? Turn back his aggression, slow down the aggression.
Dial down.
Dial down. We basically don't want him to die in the early game. That'd be great. Meanwhile, for Splyce, we're looking to see something, because yesterday they didn't really get to play League of Legends. They were kind of strangled out by G2 Esports, and I love that we're continuing to see these early game junglers from Xerxes. He was very good at finding Splyce early game leads last split. The question is, can they now transition those early game leads into mid-game domination?
We will have to wait and see. Splyce versus Vitality about to kick off. All right, we're just waiting to kick off the game. I'm expecting our new sort of LCK style intros. It's the first time I've done this, so give me a slight breather here. You ready for them, Betty?
Let's go.
I don't think they're ready, but they may be, as they're about to come in. There we go. Let's jump on to the Summoner's Rift. Splyce versus Vitality, both teams on a 0-1 record. Jizuke already getting his harass in onto Nyoskaran. First order attack of the game is always the most important, I believe.
He's already running Kleptomancy as well, so he was looking for those early plays, already start that gold generation. Something we don't typically see on the LeBlanc. Usually we see things like the Electrocute for that extra bit of burst, but Jizuke is like, well, you know what? I can increase that gold generation. I can get to those power spikes earlier. So interesting adaptation that we're seeing up against Humanoid on the Sylas as we jump into a brief pause.
I'm sure we'll get this rectified as soon as possible. Looks like it's come from Vitality's side. I want to set up some expectations for our audience at home and our fans in the crowd here, Vedia. So we talked about splitting the map. We know Splyce are likely to play through bottom side, Vitality more likely to play up towards top side. But as the game progresses, what are these teams looking to do to win the game in the end?
Destroy the enemy nexus, my friend. That
Good stuff, Betty. Thank you. Korean advice. That's why I'm still only Diamond 4.
So the thing about Splyce's composition is they do have the ability to play 1-3-1, but I think a lot of their strength comes from their ability to team fight. The thing about Sylas is we always talk about like the power of his ultimate and what it can do to steal away stuff. Going up against Vitality, he doesn't actually have that many options. He's playing against a Jace, a LeBlanc. He's also playing against an Olaf, an Ezreal, and a Yumian. Like, when I see those options as a Sylas, I'm not like, well, that's amazing. Yeah. I'm like, that's okay. And I guess the extra utility provided by the Yuumi ultimate could be very valuable, but what's really valuable about Sylas ultimately is the fact that he can just jump into a fight, he has a lot of damage, and when paired up with things like a Sivir, and he has a very solid front line to play behind, I think that it just has a very solid 2-item, 3-item spike that Splyce could look to play around. But it's very important that they look to get their bot lane ahead, because Vitality have gone for a triple Kleptomancy draft, right? So you've got Ezreal, LeBlanc, and the Jace all generating a lot of gold during the early laning phase. They're going to hit their spikes that much sooner, which means that it's much easier for them to then split up the map much earlier in the game than you typically would see. So I think Vitality will be looking to find picks, try and get into the enemy jungle, create a lot of chaos, but ultimately look for this 1-3-1 style and dominate through the side lanes.
Well, we'll see if they're able to do it already. They are in the enemy jungle, maybe a little bit sooner than expected here. Vedius, Mowgli, and Attila alongside Jack Troll, who's catching a ride. Sitting in here. We saw them get some deep vision yesterday as well to try and track Cold in the early game here. Looks like they're trying to do a little bit more than that. Ward comes down from Kobe and Nyoskaran, and they will be able to play pretty safe here, knowing that Vitality have gone for that invade.
Now, Vitality have also dropped a ward on their own red buff up towards the top side. Ooh, Kobe looking for a steal, but they will see this.
Yeah, Mowgli had to smite it.
Yep. Good stuff there from Mowgli. You'll have full control over the top side, so it looks like they will be splitting the map right now. This will give a bit of safety in the early game for Attila and Jacktroll. Remember that the ultimate goal for Vitality is to play towards the top side of the map, but they're pretty confident that both the Jace and the LeBlanc can generate a lot of pressure in the early game without the assistance of their jungler. So what they want to guarantee is that for now, there's that extra bit of safety in the duo of the bot lane. They could just freely farm, they're not constantly pushed under their tower, and that Xerxes, like, there's more information on where the enemy jungler is. So they're going to feel very comfortable. Good early game start from Vitality. I like the early game plan they've got.
Yeah, hook landing here onto Jacktroll. He will just jump straight into Attila and gets himself to safety, but there's a lot of damage already on that cat. Norscarin hits level 2. Kobe not there yet, low on mana as well, means that Attila and Jacktroll can just rain some damage down on towards the Nautilus. The hook does not quite connect, as you and me will get Jacktroll to safety.
I like the aggression that we're seeing from Attila and Jacktroll, something that Ender always loves to tell me about the cat and book down in the bot lane is that
this is the cat and boy combo.
the HP doesn't really matter, because you're relying on your AD carry or whoever you're attached to be your effective HP, because if they die, well, you're probably going to die anyway. You're not running the flash, you don't have any defensive summoner spells, you have very little HP, you're very squishy, so it doesn't matter if you take this chip damage early on. You actually want to try and proc that shield with the passive and then give it to your AD carry for those extra defensive stats.
So we saw Vitality playing down towards this bottom side jungle early on to give Attila and Jacktroll safety. Xerxes is here now. It's a pretty big minion wave coming in, and Splyce might not want to take the fight, but Xerxes has waited around for quite a while. Not too much else for him to do on the map, so he's happy investing a little bit of time towards Kobe and Norscarin's lane.
Interestingly, we did see Kobe actually go back to base by, I believe, I forget the name of the rejuvenation pot, the little pot.
Refillable potion.
The refillable potion, that's the Badger. And he's come back to lane with a little bit more sustain, because he's realizing that the amount of poke and CC, Norscarin flashes in.
Yeah, Norscarin going for the fight. Attila's going to flash away. The hook still connects, though. Xerxes there with the cocoon as well, and will land onto Yuumi. Jacktroll, though, you and me in and out, catching skill shots and getting out.
Beautifully played there by the Vitality bot lane. Even though that was a great hook from the side of Norscarin, the fact that Jacktroll detaches himself from the AD carry, body blocks the crowd control, and then reattaches himself was a great use of that ability to allow them to walk away with their lives.
And it's where we start to see some of the strength of Yuumi in that bottom lane as well. There are so many of these small mechanical plays that you can do that totally change the outlook of the lane. Now Norscarin has burnt his flash, has no ignite. Mowgli coming in here behind the lane. Norscarin realizes he's in a little bit of trouble. Kobe trying to get away as well. Norscarin has nowhere to go. First blood to the cat, and Kobe caught out a little bit as well. He'll escape underneath this tower, but Vitality strike first.
Great punish from the side of Vitality. They can see that the bot wave is pushing in favor of Splyce. They are overextended. There is a control ward in this brush to limit the amount of vision that Splyce's duo has. And remember that that flash was burnt from the side of Norscarin, so they find an early objective, or early kill rather. Now Xerxes makes his way top.
Chachi jumping in on towards Cabochard. Xerxes here as well. Cabochard trying to dodge through the minions. Gets a lot of damage down onto Chachi, but the hammer shot will come out and Cabochard has nowhere to go. The spider sinks in her fangs and Xerxes is on the ball.
Cabochard chooses not to use the flash there. He realizes that he's not going to get out of that situation, but Mowgli now looking in the mid lane.
Humanoid just forced back Mowgli with a very telegraphed gank there, just getting a bit of chip damage on towards the enemy laner. Norscarin's come up as well, but not too much more action going to happen. We are 5 minutes into the game, and there's about 1,200 gold lead here already for Vitality. Let's have another look at this bot lane play from Mowgli, though.
So you can see the control ward was in the bush, denying that vision from Splyce. Norscarin ends up getting collapsed upon because he has no flash. And while it's not ideal that Jacktroll picks up the first kill of the game, I think Vitality can still be pretty happy, because if we have a look at the gold, Attila right now is sitting at a 400, nearing 500 gold advantage, thanks to the Kleptomancy, thanks to the early kills that they generated towards the bot side of the map. Same in the top side of the map, that Kleptomancy kind of coming into gear for Vitality. And again, we talked about the triple Klepto, we talked about how this team is going to hit those item spikes that much earlier because of the lane dominance and poke that they do have, which means that Vitality is going to be in a much better position to force skirmishes and fights, especially if Vitality cannot find these early ganks with the Elise.
Splyce looking for those ganks, as you say. Xerxes with a kill on the board has gone back, picked up a Stalker's Blade. Humanoid maybe overstaying a little bit here in the mid lane as Mowgli can go for the chase, but Humanoid does have flash even if he hasn't got any mana. The first undertow will connect. Mowgli going to flash in. Doesn't quite land the second undertow, and Humanoid will escape without burning a summoner.
Use of the shield there from Humanoid to dash out to safety. Mowgli will expend his flash, and unfortunately he does not gain anything, but still Vitality sitting in the driver's seat right now. 1.5k is the gold lead. Small CS discrepancies starting to build, the biggest one being down towards the bot side of the map, which is primarily where Splyce wanted to play through, but so far, the early game plan is not coming to fruition.
Yeah, we talked about splitting the map. It's been Xerxes up towards the top side more times than Mowgli so far this game. Mowgli is up there now as Cabochard is being pushed back towards his tower just a little bit. Maybe Mowgli can set something up and get probably one of the best top laners in Spring Split on the board.
Cabochard definitely had a pretty impressive split last split. I believe he was like in second or maybe third for the MVP running, just behind Caps. A lot of people turned to him and saw him as like the big influencer for Vitality's success last split, and even through Jizuke's health issues, he was still very consistent in what he was able to do with the champions that he had in his back pocket. So I'm excited to see what he looks like coming into this split, as so far he is on his, I would say, signature Jace, given how proficient he was on the champion last split.
Definitely was. I think Jace and Urgot were probably two of the big picks for Cabochard up towards that top lane.
Champion I do not miss.
I miss Urgot jungle. Urgot jungle was fun.
Each to their own, I suppose. Now Jizuke and Mowgli actually drawing their attention towards the bot side of the map as they clear out vision in the enemy jungle. Yeah,
we wondered if at level 6 Jizuke would look up towards top. Instead, Vitality opting to play through bot, trying to shut down the strength that Splyce would have had in the early game, and they're doing a pretty good job of it, you know. Vitality getting some of these wards into the jungle, tracking Xerxes pretty well, keeping Humanoid on his toes as well, and Jizuke jumps forward. Not going to look for the chains as Xerxes just here to clear out some vision. Kobe and Norscaran pushing forward onto the Vitality bot lane as well, but it's a level 6 to a level 5 fight here. The final chapter comes out and might be the final chapter in the Book of Norscaran as he's ignited and ticking down. Jack Troll. Cool cats don't look at explosions. He walks away from the kill.
Really? All right, good to know about those cool cats. I'll be looking out for them in the future. Meanwhile, Vitality starting up the Drake, but they find themselves another kill in the bot lane. This Vitality duo looking so different to what we saw from them yesterday, building up very strong advantages. And let's not forget that this all started because of how Mowgli set up the early game for this duo. They split the map, they stole away the red buff, they stole away the Raptors, they forced Xerxes to play towards the topside jungle, allowing them to get that early push. But now Xerxes is coming for revenge.
No one on Attila or Jack Troll. The flash is available for the Ezreal. Xerxes going in, Attila very low. There's the kill, and now Jack Troll, he's just a walking double kill, you have to feel. Kobe with the chase. Mowgli coming down from the river as well, but the double goes over. Shut down by Splyce, and Kobe's on the board. Jizuke chased out here in the mid lane as well. Humanoid trying to jump in, but can't quite get the final ticks of damage needed to take down the Vitality mid.
Now Splyce, they're kicking into gear. They're tired of being pushed around, and they finally find themselves a couple of much needed kills, especially towards the bot side of the map. We will see here the Jack Troll's perspective as a good hook lands, but then the use of the E from the Ezreal is able to dash out of that one, and then the Ignite combined with the Yuumi ult combined with the Ezreal ult was more than enough damage to just rip through.
And you can see he didn't look at the explosion as well.
No, he did not. He walked away from that one.
It's the benefit of pro view.
He was casually reading his book. Now, up in the top lane.
Chachi is just going to use the Steadfast Presence to force Cabochard away. Chachi in a pretty good position here, you know, into a harass-heavy matchup. The Jace usually pretty good into these melee matchups. He's kept even on CS, got that kill early on as well. Cabo's finished his Black Cleaver now, so maybe we'll have a little bit more damage on it towards the pop.
Once again, I want to keep bringing our attention back towards the gold, seeing how this Kleptomancy is working for the side of Vitality. Big advantage being built up towards the top side of the map, and same towards the bot. Mid is still relatively even with the Kleptomancy going onto Jizuke, but I think it's equalized because of the CS differential that we're seeing. Humanoid actually playing very well during the early laning phase.
He's doing a very good job of sort of pegging back Jizuke here. It's only about a 300, 200 gold lead between Attila and Kobe, but you can see that 900 lead for Jack Troll as he's picked up both the kills. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Humanoid rooted up. Mowgli's on his way as well, but Humanoid should be able to escape. They don't know where Xerxes is, so they just dodge back with the distortion. Chachi! Ooh. Well, that's a fail flash if I ever saw one. Try to trade back onto Cabochard, but Chachi unable to jump the wall.
Unfortunately for Vizichachi, he continues to build his isolated death record to 4 now as he gets caught out in the top side in a 1 versus 1 by Cabochard. Vitality going toe-to-toe with Splyce, still sitting with a 2,000 gold lead right now. That is definitely not what you want to be happening if you're a Splyce fan.
And the question now becomes, can Vitality use this gold lead to open up that map, to start looking for those picks, those 1v1s, to get into the enemy jungle, which is what we expected them to do if they were going to turn this game towards a victory.
Well, teleport going to come in from Jizuke to keep this, catch this midway farm. The dragon is unavailable right now, but Xerxes looking to grab the scuttle, get a bit of vision and information, maybe even look for a dive. I think this would be very risky right now.
You know that there's a flash on Attila, no heal on Jack Troll.
They're going for
The
it.
elements are there, they're going in. On the hunt as they chase straight on towards Attila, and there's no escape for the Ezreal. The cat gets out, but the boy is left to die.
I sit there and say it's risky. Xerxes says this is easy. They utilize the Norscaren's ultimate to set up the knock-up to allow for the easy follow-up with the cocoon. And Splyce find themselves a very easy kill onto Attila. This is what Splyce wanted to do in the early game. And while Vitality slowed these plays down and even came out ahead, unfortunately right now, they cannot stop the dive potential of Splyce, and they find themselves
Now for Kobe, Xerxes as well sitting at 3-0-1, has completed the Runic Echoes, is putting out a lot of DPS on the early. So we talk about how strong an early game jungler is, and we talk about how much Xerxes is the early catalyst for Splyce. Once again, he proves that in this game, and he's just keeping Splyce neck and neck with Vitality.
So let's have a look back at this 1v1 replay between the two top laners. It looks like the Vizichachi is just trying to push the wave underneath the tower, gets knocked underneath the tower for that extra tower shot, and then he flashes into the wall. You hate to see it, but unfortunately it did happen. Meanwhile, we then cut immediately to more favorable Splyce replay. There's the knockup from Norscaren. You cannot dodge the cocoon, and Yuumi realizes there's nothing I can really do in this situation. Meanwhile, in the mid lane,
Yeah, Humanoid on the chase here. Jizuke dodges back, but Humanoid can do exactly that! Anything you can do, I can do better, says Humanoid.
and this is great from the young rookie from the side of Splyce. No longer a rookie, I must say. After what was a mixed split performance, he comes back into Summer and finds a solo kill onto Jizuke. Beautiful stuff from Humanoid.
Yeah, hasn't really had that much presence in the lane either. Haven't seen Xerxes doing too much around that. So it's purely Humanoid getting leads for himself. Rift Herald used here by Vitality in the top lane. This will be the top tower as Cabochard secures all of those plates. Meanwhile, in the bottom side, Kobe and Norscaren are pushing in. Mowgli's come all the way around here to try and chase onto Chachi, but Chachi should just get underneath this tower, and there will be another Rift Herald charge down in up in that top lane.
So now the game has kind of resulted in ultimately what we expected to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
The top side of the map has gone heavily in favor of Vitality, the bot side of the map has gone heavily in favor of Splyce, and now Splyce will be looking to try and find these fights, 4v4s, 5v5s. Meanwhile, Vitality, they're going to be looking for skirmishes. They're going to try and move into the enemy jungle, set up some deep vision, see if they can find these skirmishes or fights, or maybe catch someone out of position.
Jizuki's jumping straight onto Xerxes. Kobe caught up with the final chapter, and it's his final hour. He falls. Norscaren chasing Jizuki off towards the top side, but the teleport's coming in here from Splyce. Steadfast presence from Chachi into the hammer blow. Great stuff from Chachi to get himself out alive. Humanoid, though, maybe a little bit caught as the prowling projectile will connect and get the slow. Humanoid with the chain lash trying to knock back Vitality. They're still chasing him here. On towards the blast cone, will use it to get away. The ignite won't be enough to take down the mid lane.
Vitality.
Oh, Jizuke! No! Oh!
He shoots, he scores, ends up being a 1-for-1 for both sides. Jizuke, though, diving underneath the tower, looking to set up a play. Unfortunately, he needs Cabochard to clean that one up for him, but Vitality should still come out on top here. They get themselves the mid-tier 1. Can Kobe keep this one alive?
Looking to do it with that Ricochet, but Vitality have too much damage at the moment. That's the mid tower going down. Let's have another look at this fight, because it starts off with Splyce getting the Infernal.
So, notice that Silas is going back to base and Poppy is clearing out the top wave, meaning that Vitality have the numbers advantage coming into this fight, feeling confident to then collapse onto the Splyce members. A great ultimate from Vizichachi allows them to disengage, but Humanoid gets a little greedy for a ward there and almost loses his life. Fortunately for him, Cabochard does him a solid, knocks him into range of the blast cone, and he then jumps to safety. But Jizuke, he has blood in his eyes. He's looking for a pick, and he ends up just walking into Norscaren, who gets an immediate stun into Chachi, but then of course the pick comes back from Cabochard. So ultimately, 1 for 2 in favor of Vitality. Vitality get the mid-tier 1, Splyce get the Infernal Drake, but Vitality still sit with the gold lead.
Yeah, about 2,000 gold ahead right now. Rest of the games today are pretty exciting as well, as Jizuke and Cabochard look for a fight down to hit towards the bottom lane. Jizuke, you've done that twice already! You cannot disrespect Chachi's Poppy! Meanwhile, in the top lane, Kobe's on the chase as Sassy just needs the flash auto! Splyce coming up huge in a couple of plays across the map.
And this is uncharacteristic of Jizuke. This was the man that people claimed as the third best mid laner behind in Europe, behind Nuke Duck, behind Caps. He was one of the biggest carries for Vitality, but right now, it feels like that he's playing in a solo queue game. The picks that he's looking for just feel so uncharacteristic. We're going to start off by looking at this play up towards the top side of the map. Mowgli a little bit overextended. We saw a little bit of this yesterday as Kobe and Noskaran make that rotation up towards the top side. They slightly miscalculate the damage, meaning that Xerxes is forced to flash to secure that kill. But while all that was happening, we saw a dive from Jizuke in the bottom lane. He gets stunned up underneath the tower, and he ends up losing his life in a 1v1 against Chachi.
That he does. I want to have a quick look at the gold here as well, because we're coming up towards sort of the 17 to 20 minute stage. AD carries have actually equalized down towards that bottom lane, but look at top. Cabo has a 3,000 gold lead over Chachi, and although Chachi can influence in team fights, which is what Splyce will be looking to do, if Vitality can keep Cabochard in a side lane, he is incredibly strong.
And this is why both teams are still feeling alright about their current situation. The difficult part is about being able to enable your win conditions now. For Vitality, as you rightly said, they want to split up the map. They want to keep Cabochard in a side lane generating pressure, but in order to do that, you need to gain vision control over the enemy jungle. And this is where they need to gain control over the waves, move into the enemy jungle, set up that vision. They've got a couple walls littered around the bot side right now, but there's the risk of getting collapsed.
Mowgli still has the ultimate, but no flash to get out of this one. The steadfast presence comes down. Chachi knocks him up with a Keeper's Verdict, and Yuumi is done. Couldn't get away, couldn't jump to any of his teammates. Humanoid coming in with the flank here, as Splyce just continued to pound the pressure in. Humanoid flashes forward, the hook still connects, but Attila will get the arcane shift away. Splyce will settle for the mid lane tower. Jizuke is coming in for a flank here, but won't find anything.
And this is the thing that we were just talking about, Medic. If you cannot set up that vision, then you can't look to generate pressure on the side lanes. But I feel like Vitality skipped a step, because they didn't even have priority on the side lanes just yet. Have a look at the minimap first. You can see that LeBlanc is starting to push up towards top side. Jace is starting to push up bot. But Mowgli goes in to try and get this vision in the bot side. Vizichachi then goes to this play in the mid lane and interrupts the cat from joining up to safety. Beautiful use of the W, and then the chase continues. The dive underneath the tower. Splyce just tearing through the 3 Vitality squad, trying to hold down mid.
Splyce have kind of just flipped a switch in this game. They're finding the team fights they need. They are still only about even in gold, so Vitality still have some strength. You're looking
but
at
think about that. Yeah. Think about that. The triple kleptomancy,
it's true.
And they're even in gold. That's a good situation for Splyce to find themselves in right now, because when you're running these split bush compositions, and the whole point of kleptomancy is to get to your spike sooner and to have your item spike sooner, but right now they're not that much further ahead than Splyce.
Very true. Let's have a look at those item spikes, Vedius. Trinity Force, Mana Moon complete on Attila. You've got the Black Cleaver, Essence Reaver on, Yumu's Ghostblade on Cabochard. Only an item and a half sitting on Jizuke here, so he's not that powerful LeBlanc assassin you want to see. Humanoid, on the other hand, is a powerful assassin if he can get onto that backline. Ludens and Proto Belt complete. Kobe has the Essence Reaver and the Rapid Fire Cannon to give himself a little bit more damage in those team fights.
And when we talk about items, we've also got to talk about these stat lines. 5-0-3 for Xerxes. He has had a phenomenal early game for Splyce so far, and this is the most important point for Splyce, because Xerxes has done this before. He did it multiple times last split, but then Splyce slowed down. They weren't being decisive enough. They weren't setting up the vision. They weren't trying to force those plays, allowing the opposition to come back and ultimately result in these very late game fights where you'd have to rely on Kobe, but they don't need to. They're in a situation when they can now group up, look to force fights, and try and utilize the situation and these item spikes that they're now seeing.
So the steps we look for when teams want to force fights. What are they going to force a fight over? Baron is up. We're 20 minutes in. There's an Ocean Dragon up next, but that's not too much of an objective as the game goes on. So expect to see Splyce pushing in towards this topside river, getting some vision control down there, while Cabochard keeps the Vitality pressure pushing forward in that bottom lane.
Here are the pings. This is what I want to see from Splyce. Good vision setup around the Baron area. Gain control over mid. They're keeping Vizichachi down towards the top side of the map right now because he still has the teleport. Same for Humanoid. Cabochard has his TP up as well. And in an ideal world, Splyce want to try and force Vitality to TP into them. Meanwhile, Vitality, they want to try and keep Splyce as separated as possible. They want Jizuke to complete his second item. Ideally, they want Attila to reach that third item already, but he's still in a pretty good spot. If they can just prevent Splyce from being able to set up the map and just allow their side laners to keep generating pressure, hopefully Vitality can find a pick, then they're in a much better position to start threatening Splyce once again.
We'll see if they can do it. Vision control paramount for both these teams now. We are looking at those 2-3 item spikes we talked about in pick and ban for Splyce. They have their team fight composition well and truly online, but Vitality do not want a full 5v5 at all. So we'll have to keep our eyes on exactly how the next few minutes do progress. Because you feel, well, I feel at least, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, Denny, as I very often am, the next 5 to 10 minutes really define this game. If Vitality don't get a pretty sizable lead by the 30-minute mark, Splyce should be able to force those team fights and to take the game away.
I mean, it's important to remember that this Jace is only going to continue to scale, right? He's always going to be a threat on the side lane. But the amount of threat that he generates, even though in a 1v1 he might get scarier, he himself, if he's the only scary member of this team, then Splyce have nothing to be really worried about. My question is, will Splyce force the Baron or not? Because right now, the map is set up perfectly. This is exactly the situation they want to be in. Vizicachi is with the team. They have top lane pushing. If they just gain prio over mid right now and start off the Baron, this is great.
That is beautiful! Flash, steadfast presence, you and me, does not matter. You, me, immobilized and caught out by Splyce, and now they go for the Baron. They go for the setup. Cabochard has to teleport down towards the bottom lane if he wants to join.
So they find the successful pick, and now they're forcing the Baron. Cabochard will force to join the fight. Here comes the teleport. Can Vitality stop this?
True Shot Barrage has come out as well. Vitality trying to do everything they can to stop this in its tracks. Knocked back with the Keeper's Verdict. Jizuke caught out with the hook as well. Baron's going to go down, and now Splyce can look for a bit of a fight if they want. They force Jizuke away, and Splyce make the decisive play in this game.
Exquisite performance from Splyce. That is exactly what they needed to do. They chose not to force the Baron too quickly. Instead, they used their vision denial to look for a pick. They found it onto Jack Troll, and then they immediately converted it into a Baron. Props to Chachi, who, after dying in the 1v1, has only had a phenomenal game. Executed upon this Poppy beautifully, knocks away the smite from Vitality, allows Splyce to secure the objective, and now Splyce sit in a very healthy position. So let's have a look back at this pick that we saw, the flash. Oh, the flash W from Vizicachi to prevent Jack Troll from dashing to safety. Clutch stuff from the top laner from Splyce.
And I wonder if Vitality had really thought through the Poppy into Yuumi interaction, because although it obviously doesn't work in the laning phase, when Chachi gets into this team fight, the steadfast presence totally immobilizes the Yuumi. She cannot have the impact that she wants, because Yuumi's all about getting onto the front line, healing them up, getting onto the back line, using that ultimate to root multiple members by dodging around the fight. And if Poppy's in the midst of you all, you just have no impact.
Completely agree. I think the Poppy pick ultimately is now coming into effect. In lane, it definitely struggled, but that's very much what we anticipated would happen. And now, the next steps for Splyce, pushing up the vision line, trying to utilize this Baron to start threatening the enemy base. Siv's range pretty short, but her wave clear is immense. And for Vitality, their wave clear, not so much. With the Ezreal, the Olaf, the LeBlanc, it's not the strongest against this Baron buff, and that means that there's going to be plenty of time for Splyce to move into the enemy jungle, set up this vision, and start to threaten a potential dive onto Jizuke, who is alone trying to defend this tower.
That's exactly what they're doing. Remember, let's hark back to the question we asked of a Splyce earlier on. Could they take the advantage that they got them in the early game and translate it into a mid-game push? Could they get the pressure from having this really fed Elise? Well, they're doing exactly that, as once again they catch out Mowgli, who has to use his ult defensively. Haven't seen him getting onto the backline, haven't seen him being that aggressive Olaf in this mid-game, and now Splyce push forward as a 5-man squad.
They should have forced Mowgli back. They're now threatening this tower. Will they look for a dive? Yes, they will.
Arnold's going, landing a hook again. Yuumi with the final chapter will knock them back, but they just look for the inhibitor tower. The inhibitor might be sure to follow as Jizuke's dodging in and out as much as he can. Humanoid steals away the Olaf ult, but that inhibitor still pretty darn healthy. Humanoid's going up towards the top side, does have the teleport if he's needed urgently by his team, but I think Splyce will look for another inhibitor tower if they can.
It looks like they want to keep this push, though. They're not slowing down right now. This is great to see from Splyce. Big adaptations coming in compared to Spring. They're utilizing this Baron. They still have 35 seconds left. In an ideal world, they'll secure the second inhibitor tower so they can look to play around these inhibitors without that extra defense.
And as soon as you force Jizuke back with a crit like that, it makes it very hard for Vitality to defend. Humanoid is pushing in the top wave. Splyce here still trying to chip away at that inhib in mid. They do back away. Vitality very much pinned back.
Or do they?
Well, all of Splyce back to away apart from Humanoid, and then he said, nope, I'm getting this inhibitor if it costs me everything. Jizuke's teleported in behind them here. Chachi once again with the step house present. The inhibitor does go down, and now Jizuke's not in a good spot. He dodges back though. The hammer shot comes down. Xerxes with the chase, sinks in the fangs, and the spiderlings will skittle after him as Xerxes picks up his 6th kill of the game.
That was so big brain from Vizichachi. He knows that his team is behind him, so if he knocks up Jizuke with the ultimate, he will only knock the LeBlanc into his own teammates. Amazing Poppy performance from Vizichachi. We were skeptical at first, the 1v1 death, but my man, he has turned it around.
Splyce have been playing 4D underwater chess this entire game. The Poppy pick into the Yuumi, the knockback, other things I'm sure as well.
I mean, it's great into LeBlanc as well.
Yeah,
there's a lot of dashes on this team.
Ezreal. It's just incredible. Vitality, on the other hand, struggling quite a lot. Cabochard got his signature lead in the top lane, but they haven't been able to utilize this comp to find the picks they wanted.
And honestly, we've also got to ask the question, like, what's going on with Vitality? Like, underperformances from Jizuke, those solo deaths, very uncharacteristic of him. And while Vitality did have an advantage in the bot lane, we didn't really see them capitalize off the back of it. Like, they had that advantage top, they couldn't really convert it into much else, and now they're in this position where they're defending this final tower.
Jizuke does it once again, jumps into his demise. Yuumi trying to get away, but Jack Troll won't live to see another day. Vitality chase back into their base, and Splyce are looking for their 2nd inhibitor, and maybe even the game.
Very convincing game so far from Splyce. We're pre-30 minutes, he lands another hook.
Another hook connected from Norscarin, but the Nexus Tower should be the focus here for Splyce. They will get the first, they'll look for the second as well. 3 members of Vitality trying to defend, but you just can't do anything against the Splyce onslaught. Another kill for Kobe as he goes on a killing spree, and the Nexus will be sure to follow. Chachi knocking people into walls, left, right, and center, and Splyce take their first win of summer.
The early game was not looking too good for Splyce. I think Mowgli had a very smart strategy, allowing Attila and Jack Troll to get that early edge, being able to turn around that early gank, putting Norscarin behind. Everything was looking great, but then these small missteps from the side of Vitality. Jizuke dying in the 1v1 mid. That dive that happened from the side of Splyce towards the bot side of the map really then brought Koei back into the game. Vitality's only option was, how can we play through Cabochard? Well, they never had an opportunity to. Great Baron control from the side of Splyce. Excellent setup of the picks to then convert it into a Baron. Good use of the Baron as well onto Vitality's base in what was a 28-minute victory. Hopefully, this means that the days of late-game Splyce are gone, and we're seeing the new and improved early to mid-game Splyce that so many fans have wanted to see.
It's what we've been talking about since the start of Spring Split. Splyce showing that their 4th place in Spring wasn't an aberration. They continue to develop and to grow over the off-season, hopefully into the Summer Split. Vitality, on the other hand, that RNG bootcamp's not looking too good at the moment. They lose with Yuumi, who's been perma-picked, perma-banned, and they're just not able to have the impact as a team that we expected.
Yeah, a lot of frustration from the side of Vitality coming into the split 0 and 2. I expected more for them. I rated them very highly coming into this split. I thought with the meta the way it is, that they would just come out the gate swinging.
They were known for chaos and for being unique, and that's what the meta is at the moment.
And I'm just so surprised with how Jizuke is performing as well. I hope that he is able to turn it around in the coming weeks, but Vitality, they start off the split 0-2. Meanwhile, Splyce, their first loss to G2, somewhat expected. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But a very convincing win up against Vitality means that a lot of eyes are going to be drawing towards Splyce.
Definitely will. But who do you think had the best performance in this game? Was it Chachi, Xerxes, or Humanoid? Vote for your favorite as Kia player of the game at LoL Esports on Twitter. I mean, Humanoid, I remember him having impact, but he only ended 2-0-0. So if you give it to him, I think you're trolling.
I really think it's a tough one, right? Like, sure, for me, Humanoid, maybe not the most impactful in the game, but Xerxes and Vizichachi. Oh, it's such a difficult debate because Xerxes, his scoreline looks the best, right? He's 7-0-4, but he set up all the early game plays. He is the reason why bot lane got back into the position that they were in. He was controlling a lot of the bot side jungle. He was the reason why we had such good vision control from the side of Splyce. Whereas Chachi, he just had so many impressive plays, right? He found solo kills onto Jizuke. He found a lot of highlight reels, like catching out Yuumi multiple times, right? Like, it's a tough one for me. Xerxes, Chachi, definitely.
That's the thing. I think it's quite difficult because a lot of Chachi's plays, they were good, but it was also his champion, which is a very good pick in the draft, right? Having the steadfast presence really made him have much more impact in teamfights than another top lane tank would have done. Whereas Xerxes took the Elise and really got his team back in the game because they were falling behind. They were 2,000-3,000 gold behind, and Xerxes was the one that was able to grab back some of that advantage.
I mean, I love that dive bot that we saw when Norskeren ulted, and then we saw the Elise go from mid through river straight to bot tower, and I was like, this is super risky, and he was like, no, it's not, I'm getting a kill, and they immediately bring the bot lane back, and I'm like, all right, props to Xerxes.
Definitely, it worked out incredibly well for Splyce. We're always talking about Xerxes when we talk about Splyce, but to hear more about Splyce's win, we're going to go over to Law and the best poppy in the LEC.
Thank you very much, Malik. The best poppy in the LEC, indeed. I mean, I think Chachi and Poppy may be the best love story in LoL esports as a whole. So talk me through the pick. How is it viable now, and why was it good, especially in this composition?
We just needed something on top lane that will negate the enemy top laner to do the plays, because we wanted to play the bot side, and yeah, I was just feeling the Poppy this game, and I said, I didn't practice much Poppy, but I just felt it that it will be good in this game. So I just said to the team that pick it for me and it will be fine. Yes.
Just follow me. What a nice pick indeed. There's two plays I want you to look at. The first one is the Baron setup, and the second one will be the fight afterwards when you engage. I want you to talk me through what happened just behind you. In comes, just explain to me.
So right when we started the Nashor, we said that we want to turn on them, and then when I saw an opportunity that I can ult away the enemy jungler, I was calling it a lot that I can finish, and at the LeBlanc I was just saying that I will ult her back to the team and we can kill her as well.
Insane. I mean, insane timings all the time, really. That was flawless play for you. It's interesting because last split, you weren't used to be very efficient against Vitality. I mean, you don't have the best record against them. So what was different this time?
Yes, last split I think we lost both games, even though we had like good early games and just struggled a bit later on. And I think we got a lot cleaner over the last split, especially the playoffs. The practice helped us a lot. And I think we just managed to show how much better we became. Because yesterday I felt like the composition that we drafted was too weak in the early game and we couldn't really execute what we wanted, but today we actually drafted what we wanted and we were really in the leading position.
What do you have to be careful about when facing Vitality?
They are really aggressive, and most of the times it's Cabochard that is their main carry, so I think it's mostly about neutralizing him and attacking their bot lane.
And you did it really well. Congratulations again, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Misfits will take on Fnatic. Don't go anywhere, guys.